Welcome to Hungry Hip Hop, public style reviews where we dish out the freshest takes on what these artists are serving up. We're looking for the spiciest bars, vibes, and production in order to expand our palettes and diversify our playlist. So, Juan, you want to start with this?
So this week we'll be discussing Polo G's new album, The G.O.A.T. So The G.O.A.T is the Chicago artist Polo G's sophomore project following his 2019 album Die a Legend. Polo G gained notoriety for his single Finer Things, a song that he wrote while in prison. While he started making music in 2016 with a Chicago drill sound, this song marked a shift toward a more melodic and introspective style that he is known for today. This new album carries forward that side of Polo G and includes features from artists such as Juice WRLD, BJ the Chicago Kid, and Lil Baby. And it has production by DJ Mustard, Michael Made It, Tay Keith, and Hit Boy, to name a few. So similarly to Die a Legend, The G.O.A.T is largely an account of Polo G's struggles while growing up on the north side of Chicago. While Die a Legend has the urgency of an artist who recently found success and moved to Calabasas, The G.O.A.T shows Polo G a year later, after he has had more time to reflect on the things he saw and did in Chicago. The distance from his hometown has allowed him to recognize how the traumas of violence, drugs, and police aggression have affected him and his loved ones. As a result, this album shows Polo G looking closely at his role as a witness to and participant in everything that went on in his neighborhood. So let's now get into exactly what we thought about the album.
All right, I can start us off then. So Alan here, I'm gonna start by saying this album was excellent to me.
Marlo's face, I'm dead.
The last two albums we reviewed on this podcast, I felt like I was coming across as sort of like a nasty old head who didn't like newer rappers. But with this Polo G album, The G.O.A.T, that's not how I felt at all. I counted at least 8 songs with basketball references, which immediately I'm going to start loving as a basketball fan myself. But one thing that I actually really did want to draw attention to was the structure of the album and the way that the songs are layered. So the album is called The G.O.A.T, right? Mm-hmm. And it starting with Don't Believe the Hype. I really got this feeling of here's a kid starting from the very bottom and he's going to rap his way to the top. He's coming in from Chicago. And I kind of got that feeling from Don't Believe the Hype all the way to Flex, that Polo G is building himself up to be this next generation rapper. After Flex, we go into Go Stupid all the way to 33. And this is the section of the album that I call Hitting It Big, where the biggest single on this, Go Stupid, represents him blowing up in the underground rap scene and kind of getting more clout in Chicago, if you will. And as this moves along, we see that Polo G and especially his good friend Juice WRLD, who we'll get into on this album, really start hitting it big. And then so moving in from I Know up into DND, Do Not Disturb, we get a lot of more reflective tracks. So I call this the reflections section of the album. He goes back and looks a lot about the life of Juice WRLD in particular, his past relationships, and even talking to his friends who have died, who may or may not be Juice WRLD. And then the last kind of leg of the album, from Chinatown up to Wishing for a Hero, I really think of as the G.O.A.T, a grand way to kind of wrap up the album, where he's moved off of just being traumatized by the death of his friend, but Polo recognizes, hey, if I want to be greater than myself, if I want to be the G.O.A.T, I have a lot of responsibilities. I have a lot of people looking up to me. And it felt like Waiting for a Hero was a great wrap up to bring in a Tupac sample and talk about some real issues. Really elevates this album to me, saying, I'm not just the greatest rapper, but I have other things that I really care about. And seeing him evolve from Don't Believe the Hype through the end of the album just was an amazing kind of journey he took us on. So that was long-winded, but the structure I really appreciated beyond even just great individual songs.
I wonder if it was purposeful that like the album's called The Go, and then for the last track on the album, he raps over a beat that Tupac rapped over, who's considered a GOAT, or the GOAT in rap. And so I thought that was like super interesting.
I agree. Mark, what did you think about the album as a whole since you're chiming in?
Yeah, so Mark here. Overall, I liked it. I will say it's not what I expected at all. As I mentioned on the last episode, that I had never even listened to him before. I just kept seeing his name appear everywhere. People kept like sending me videos. I just wasn't interested though. And I was right in that he definitely is a lyricist, not in like complex lyricism, but in content, you know. But I thought he was like more of a rapper. I didn't expect the singing, like this melodic flow. That completely caught me off guard. Like when I heard the first track, I was like, oh, okay, like he's doing some melodic stuff. Then like, 3, 4 tracks in, I was like, oh, this is how he actually raps, you know? So that caught me very off guard. I was not expecting that. And it kind of disappointed me at first because I wanted to hear, some rapping. But I, got over that pretty quickly and accepted the sound and then just kind of looked more towards the lyrics and vibe and all that. And yeah, I don't know if I would say I love this album, but I definitely do think it's a good album. Especially just the content. Just growing up, like before even I saw that or learned that he was from Chicago, just by the lyrics, I could tell he was from Chicago easily without him even mentioning Chicago. Just the constant death of all his friends, the constant, police issues, and just everybody dying around him at a young age. Like any Chicago drill rapper you listen to, that's going to be the content of the music for the most part. And so I was able to tell that pretty quickly on. So like I said, overall, I liked it. I'd say my biggest complaint though for the album is that damn near all the songs sound the same, which isn't even always a bad thing. Like there's albums where a lot of the songs all sound the same and I really enjoy it. But I think that like even though he's talking about the same topic almost every song, he doesn't really talk about it a different way. Like he's very much talking about the same topic and the same way, just over different melodies. Which once again isn't bad if you really like the sound. I'm just not a super big fan of the sound. And so it was just like cool to me, but yeah, no, overall I definitely thought that this was dope. I didn't catch any of the kind of like breakdown sections you did, Alan, of like, he was talking more about this here or this here. For me, every time I listened to a track, it was just heavily diving in on reflecting on growing up in Chicago and what that's like I can't think of a single song. I think maybe Go Stupid is probably the only one, if that. But like, there's not a single other song on this album, in my opinion, where he's not reflecting on the death of those around him or heavy drug use to cope with that death. Also, very similar to Juice WRLD, whereas Juice WRLD's using drug use to cope with heartbreak. Polo G is using drugs to cope with death of friends around him. But overall, that's kind of my feeling for the album. Milo, what do you think?
So this is Milo speaking, and listening to both of your descriptions pretty much crystallized why I didn't like this album, but I'm not going to say it's trash. If this album were an essay and a student turned it into me, it would be like a solid C, maybe a C minus, because I recognize the structure and I definitely recognize the content. I have a couple of bars written down here that I resonated with, and the things he's talking about are substantial. But the structure of the album and the fact he has real things to talk about could not make up for the fact, first, as you mentioned, Mark, that almost all the songs sound the same. As far like if you're making production and trying to create a vibe, you've got to make your songs stand out from each other. There were a couple that started off with interesting little guitar riffs or pianos, and then it just devolved back into the same monotony that I'd heard before. And the second thing that the structure and content couldn't make up for was the technique, the rapping technique. It's like this guy learned one rapping cadence and just went with it, like da 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 da. Okay, there are other ways to arrange your words where you don't have to rap in the same style for every single song. And even like they were just, how can I put this? Like there were some places where he sounded like Blueface and he was barely on beat. Not okay. You have to be on beat when you're rapping. That's like an essential.
That's disrespectful. There was another place where disrespectful.
There was another place where he was rushing his words in order to make the bar.
Yeah.
And that to me is Jake Paul level of incompetence. Like stretching the words to make the bar or rushing them. Go back and clean it up. So what this album had in content and structure was overwhelmed by poor technique, monotonous production, and the same vibe for pretty much every song.
Just out of curiosity, Milo, was the first song you heard from this album "Go Stupid," or did you kind of just start at the very start of the album itself?
Yeah, so for every album I listen to, I always listen. I cut off shuffle, and I start at track 1, at least as it's presented to me on Spotify.
Okay.
I know there was like some confusion about that on the last album, and then I just go through it song by song.
Okay. Did everyone do that? Because I actually heard "Go Stupid" as the first song, and similar to Mark, that's kind of why I was a little shocked to hear the rest of the album feeling so different than "Go Stupid," because "Go Stupid" gave me a feeling like a really hyped, almost Denzel Curry kind of song.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear that one first?
I heard from the first track, "Don't Believe the Hype." That's
okay.
I started.
Yeah, Don't Believe the Hype.
Cool. I was just curious about that. So, Juan, why don't you give us a quick rundown of what you thought?
Sure. So overall, I really like this album. I enjoyed his lyricism. I think we brought up last week that we thought he was a lyricist just based on what we had heard. Mm-hmm. And usually when I imagine lyricist, I think of someone with really dense metaphors, wordplay, really intricate rhyme schemes, things like that, like Earl Sweatshirt, Lupe Fiasco people. So that's what I was imagining. But what I got instead was this very emotionally raw artist whose lyrical power wasn't in the complicatedness of his words or anything like that, but just the way that he was able to tell a story that emotionally resonated with me. I agree. I think the beats themselves are very similar, but I appreciated that. Going into Don't Believe the Hype, I thought that I really appreciated the mixture of the piano and the guitar. I thought they complemented each other very well. And that almost felt like a thesis statement of the production. The rest of the album has either pianos or guitars on the beat. And I appreciate that because often, especially when it comes to trap music, I feel like they just go into their email and find all the beats that have been sent to them and then pick the best songs from there. And so there's no cohesion. I don't think, oh, this is the kind of beat that they wanted or anything like that. It was just the song itself. And so seeing that he has a repertoire of instruments that the album uses makes it feel like a more personal and a more cohesive project for me.
Actually, I did want to echo the consistency between having piano and guitar, especially when you're going to end the whole album by sampling a Tupac song on an album called The G.O.A.T. I really respected that it's not just thrown in at the end of the album, but he's actually built it up to the pianos have gone on this journey with you. The acoustic guitar, the electric guitar have gone through the journey with you. That ends in this famous changes Tupac track that I felt like he earned more than if he had just thrown it in kind of randomly. So even though I definitely hear what you guys are saying, Milo and Mark, about a lot of the production being similar, I think a lot of that does come down to using basically drums and electric guitar or piano on a lot of the same ones. And in my mind, I'm going to talk about a couple of songs later where I feel like the instrumentals really broke up the monotony for me. And that was one thing that going back to, well, the Drake album especially really needed.
Yeah, I would say I think the drums could have used work. It felt very generic in that regard. But I guess that just comes with the genre.
Yeah. No, I mean, the production was good in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was really good, but like, once again, like I mentioned, it's just so monotonous. Like, especially when you have content, like I really don't mind the like lyrical content being monotonous. I actually tend to prefer albums that have very similar lyrical content for the whole song or for the whole album. But anyways, because they like Juice WRLD, for example, every goddamn song's about heartbreak. Like it's rare that you're gonna find a song that isn't about heartbreak, especially on his first album, Goodbye, Good Riddance. But at least the production was different for the songs, you know. But when it's the content's the same and the production's the same for every song, that's kind of like, bro, just give me an EP or something like that. Like I don't need how many tracks was this? I don't know, but like I don't need like 15 whatever of the same song, and that's what it felt like. But with that being said, even though it's a criticism of like the album, it's not a criticism of him though. Because one of the things I actually wrote down after like finishing the album, the first thing I wrote down was that this feels like an album where someone has something to say and they can't say it enough, you know. Like something is really on his heart, something's really on his mind, and he just has to get out, even if he's saying the same thing over and over. It's an overwhelming emotion in him. It's an overwhelming tragedy he had to deal with, and so he just can't stop talking enough about the death of his, you know, brothers and people around him, you know, shooting at the ops, taking drugs to cope. Like it's just, no matter how many times he says it, it's not enough because he still has it on his mind, you know. We want to get into notable tracks.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. We should probably start with the first one that a lot of us mentioned, which is also the first track, Don't Believe the Hype.
Yeah. So earlier I already brought up the way that I loved the instrumental on it. The other thing that caught my attention was how good of a thesis statement it also is lyrically. The hook talks about how I dig deep into my spirit when I spit into the mic. All them sit downs in that county made me think about my life, which is a really great way of encompassing what he did on this project and the way that I felt he really dug deep. I don't think I've heard a hip hop artist be this raw, real, and transparent about what they've gone through in a way that doesn't glorify them or get them off the hook. I think a lot of like emo rap, emotional rap often acts as if the world is the evil thing or the person is the evil thing. And I think he sees himself and shows himself as someone who was involved in both the doing and the temptation to fall into violent and destructive lifestyles.
I had a quick question for one.
Sure.
Okay, so before I say this, I understand you might just be being hyperbolic, but if you are being literal, then feel free to just go ahead and answer the question, because you said you've never heard a hip hop artist be this raw and honest, and they try to kind of paint themselves as a person that was warped by this world of sin that they're living in. So I'm wondering what you thought of Ready to Die by Biggie Smalls, because when I listened to that album, I mean, you can ask Mark, like my takeaway from that, like this man is a criminal, like a bona fide criminal. I mean, even in Suicidal Thoughts, he just straight up says, like, if I die, I should go to hell, because to be honest, I'm a piece of shit. I like doing evil things, and I don't want to be in heaven with the goody goodies. So when you say you've never heard a hip hop artist be this honest, like, what do you mean?
I've never listened to Ready to Die.
That's a fair response.
Respect.
What I was about to say was that, like, so one, you're actually probably going to be the only one that knows what I'm talking about. But when I was listening to this album and, you know, listening to like, you know, half the songs so far, it was the vibe I got from this, and matches, in my opinion, the rawness that you're talking about of being affected by the world, but also being part of the bad too, is actually Mozzie from Sacramento. He, if y'all don't know Mozzie, he's a gangster rapper from Sacramento, and he talks a lot, and I mean a lot. Like in this album, I didn't hear Polo G describe himself as a gangster himself. Didn't say it almost as he was a part of it, as much as like a lot of his closest friends were a part of it. Whereas in Mozzie, who was an actual blood in Sacramento, mentions it as like from an inside the game perspective. And on his album, One Up Top Ock, it's kind of the same mood of like just kind of very sorrowful of like, yo, like a lot of my brothers died, and because of that, we had to go slide on the other dudes and, you know, take him. He has one line where he says, you know, the only reason you should hate me is if I killed one of your friends, you know.
The way that I kind of viewed it is that he's not so much, I'm proud of being a gangster, I'm proud of all these guns, but I'm proud of the way that I took the rough life that I've been given and channeled that into my music. And just even into the chorus here, when he says, I dig deep into my spirit when I spit into the mic. All them sit downs in that county made me think about my life. So to me, it's not I'm glorifying this druggy gangster lifestyle. It's I want to tell you about what's happened to me. I want to tell you about what's inspired this, and it's not fun. When I say I'm sitting down in county, that's not inspirational time for a lot of people, but it's what I'm going to do. It's what I'm going to make music about. And to me, that really highlights what a great opener to the album this is. It says, "This is what I've learned. I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to grow to become the GOAT." So great opener in my.
And one of the lyrics that I really liked on this song was he says, "Everybody got their input on how we should live," and to me, that's so true. Like when you hear about all the murders that happen in Chicago and all that stuff like that, people are like, "Well, why don't they just do this, or why don't they stop doing this or act like this or whatever?" And he's like, "You don't live where I live. You don't deal with the shit I deal with. Like you can have all this input on how I should live, but kind of like fuck you. Like you don't know it until you live it type thing. So I would really like that line in the album.
Going back to the point that Milo brought up about other artists doing it, I think part of it is his delivery. I've never really been that attracted to like Biggie's delivery, especially just the hardness that comes with it. Certain artists are able to present their horrible actions and recognize them as horrible, but their delivery and their way of describing it makes it seem like it doesn't really phase them, or it only phases them on an intellectual level rather than like a heart level. The way his lyrics enter his own mind state and convey the mind state is why I think it's different from a lot of other emotional or transparent rap that I've heard.
Would anyone say it's fair to say you could kind of hear the pain in his voice
Oh yeah,
when he was
rapping 100%, 100%.
And I think that went a long way.
I was going to say that's why I found this song so impactful. It's not I'm saying the most gangster things. It's this really happened to me. I really want to like relate this to you.
Yeah.
So for me, that's kind of where I fell on it.
I know the next track that it's mentioned or that we noted is Martin and Gina.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to talk about this song, and especially hearing that you guys had some issues with kind of the repetitive production. I wanted to pull up someone who is credited with production on a few songs, Taj Money, who actually worked on I Know, Martin and Gina, and Trials and Tribulations, which are three of my favorite songs. And so what I noticed whenever Taj kind of gets his production end going, he switches up the electric guitar to have kind of a little bit more of a groovy, almost melancholy kind of beat. So it really goes from what I imagine is kind of a trap instrumental, where the first two songs I can see you guys kind of going like, okay, we've done this before. This doesn't even sound too different than the Drake thing we reviewed. I think that this song instrumentally just sounds way different than the song that came right before it, which was Heartless, and then Flex featuring Juice WRLD. Where on both those tracks, I could see that just being a song that Juice WRLD did, to be honest. But this one, Martin and Gina, well, it's funny because it actually content sounds a little more like a Juice WRLD song, because he's talking about this relationship and meeting this girl who he has to keep proving like, no, I'm a gangster, and no, I have all this money. And then that gets exemplified in lines like, we're from the trenches, but we moved on to the finer things. Now you done went from H&M to being a designer fiend. Really kind of
great
was,
line, yeah.
Yeah. And to me, that was one of the turning points of the album, where he goes from a kid trying to make it to, hey, now I have some clout. Now me and my girlfriend are not shopping at H&M, but we're moving out to LA and stuff. So to me, this really picked up the first leg of the album and is actually one of the highlights for me in that way. Milo, what did you think of the song?
So I noticed the production was slightly different. I noted the guitar riff, and that's what set it apart from the first two songs.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't think it escaped its trap, like its essential trap nature.
I can feel that.
I did think it had a bounce that was a little different. I thought the rhythm of it felt a little more danceable than a lot of the other trap beats that were on this album.
It very much did. Actually, my notes for the song, the very first thing I wrote was, this beat slaps. I actually thought this was actually a really good beat. But it's kind of, so this song is like an exact inverse of the rest of the album for me. So for the rest of the album, it was kind of like the beats were, whatever, but the lyrics were really strong for me. For this song, it was, I love the beat, but the lyrics didn't really do much for me. It was just kind of talking about him and his girl and like the qualities he loves in her and like stuff like that. Bro, I was like, I'd rather just listen to Juice WRLD if I want to hear about relationship talk. This wasn't in depth enough for me. But I thought the beat was like, and actually, Alan, I didn't notice that the producer you talked about for this beat did those other songs, but that makes sense now because those other songs were the other productions I really liked too. So
the lyrical content being a love song so early at the outset of the album, I thought helped to make it stand out because the previous two songs the content was more about like that rough lifestyle. And then we are met with a love song that has like this little riff that kind of makes it different. Just that the lyrics also help to kind of add a nice bit of variation at the beginning of the album.
Right. And actually, talking about the lyrics a little bit, I mentioned earlier how I thought this album flowed really well and kind of told a good narrative. Verse 2 is the start, is one of the places that I think the I Made It section kind of starts, especially when he talks, moving you out to Cali, in my mansion, taking care of me. I know sometimes I'm crazy. I was hoping you could bear with me. So in this point, he's not that kid from Chicago anymore. He's made it out to California. He's buying his girl all these designer clothes. And even though, yes, I can see the lyrics aren't really anything mind-blowing, I do appreciate in the context of the album, the way it moves the story forward.
My only thing is that the producer tag makes me uncomfortable.
What was it? I don't remember.
I'm not going to reenact it.
You want to sing it one?
I don't know what it was. I can't. I didn't
like,
know it. What was it?
Taj Money or something like that.
Yeah, it's a girl going, Taj Money.
I think producer tags need to maybe die as a whole.
Oh, dude, I love producer tags. It just depends on them. But like, Metro wants some more. Like, I love them. I think more. There should be more producer tags in my opinion.
We got London on the track.
I feel like they only work on bangers. And I think I brought this up on the Drake album too, that when a song is really like slowly growing, a producer tag ruins the progression of it. Like when I hear producer tag, the next thing I need to hear is the beat just kick in.
Yeah.
And when that doesn't happen, it doesn't work.
That's super fair.
Yeah, it reminds me of the LimeWire days when you got random people talking in your...
I had a version of Stronger by Kanye West where the guy at the end of the song was like, shout out to France.
Oh, dead.
In this case, I am glad it was there because it let me make that Taj Money connection that basically...
That's true. Going forward, I will be more excited whenever I hear that tag, even though I'll hate the tag itself.
Before we move on to the next song, I understand that there are things that in the song that kind of add some variation. When I say variation, it's the difference between having an iced coffee and a cold brew. So it's like we're still talking about brown water. So do not try to like. It wasn't like that. It didn't stand out.
It's steeped for 24 hours.
I can taste the difference, Milo.
What'd you say?
I can taste the difference between iced coffee and real cold brew. I will have you know.
Very well.
Milo, I'm right there with you, bro. I'm right there with you, dog. But anyways, the next track that a lot of us noted actually is Flex featuring Juice WRLD. I am a huge Juice WRLD fan. Very, very huge Juice WRLD fan from the first time I heard him. So first and foremost, RIP to Juice WRLD. But one thing that was really odd, actually, so I saw that he was featured on tracks. I'm like, all right, cool. And as I was listening to it, I actually, for the first time, couldn't fully tell the difference between like which one was which at first. So when the song track first started and, you know, they started like sing rapping, whatever, I didn't know whether that was Polo G or Juice WRLD. I was actually like, this might be Juice WRLD, but I'm not sure. And then when Juice WRLD's verse finally came, I was like, okay, no, that's Juice WRLD. First one was Polo G. But when I heard the first verse, that kind of showed me how similar, though, that they kind of are. Like, I think Polo G's a little more rappy and Juice WRLD's a little more a lot more singing, but they kind of still do the same sing rapping type thing, you know? So they both sounded pretty similar on the track. And as I noted, Juice WRLD singing's a little more smoother and Polo G's is a little rougher.
You do not ever get to use "See You Later, Alligator," "Quite a Wild Crocodile" in a rap song, ever. You don't get to say "Make like a banana and split," "Make like a tree and leave."
I'm a doctor and I'm running out of patience.
Shut up. Juan, you blasphemy.
No, wait. No.
Yeah.
That's a genius line.
Yes, thank
Take
you.
that back.
I fuck with you, Milo. I fuck with you. Juan, don't you ever disrespect like that, bro. I'll take you off this goddamn street.
It's been done.
I literally wrote that as part of the verse that I really liked. But I actually also wanted to highlight another line, actually, in the Juice WRLD verse that I loved was the very start. Bury me like a pharaoh with this money and my gold too. Keep a shooter in there trying to rob me. This is the wrong tomb. Anytime rappers get out here and they compare themselves to pharaohs,
I love that.
I love it. I love it. Kanye says, put the pussy in a sarcophagus. I love that shit.
Milo, you got any?
No, you failed.
Other thoughts on this?
I said this last time. There are critical fails. And see you later, alligator, quite a wild crocodile. Turn around and go back to the DMV. Reschedule for a test 2 weeks from now. Like, no.
I'm dead.
It's not it's not hatred.
Should we move on to Go Stupid?
Yeah, I was about to just move on. So the next track, Go Stupid, that's definitely the most unique song on, not unique in that like other people don't do it, but unique to this album. Like it's by far the most unique song on this whole album. Very, very upbeat. Take Keith on the beat. Super hype or whatever. And by far the most features too. For me, lyrics weren't anything special. Typical lyrics you would hear on a beat like this. Like if you show me this beat, I'd be like, yeah, no, guns and flexing exactly is what I expect, you know?
It was strange to me that there was no hook, but I thought the flow itself was catchy enough to kind of keep it going. I thought Polo G had the best verse personally.
That's interesting.
I disagree. I thought that NLE Chopper had the best verse. He had the most energy.
Was he the first feature to come after Polo G?
He was the last.
I think he's the second feature.
He was the third verse. That's the last one.
But that is? There's three features
one of
on this
them
song.
is Mike Will Made It, who is a producer.
Why doesn't know them as whatever? Anyways,
producers deserve more credit.
I will say that. I fully agree with that. I ain't gonna even. Yeah,
I like that new trend. He also credits Mustard as a feature.
Well, the first feature to me, his voice was perfect for this beat. It was actually tolerable to listen to that style of rhyming. Something about his voice was it was unique enough. Who was it? What is the identity of the first feature?
Done it for Vegas.
Okay.
That was my first time hearing him. And I thought it was hard too.
I agree with Mark. Lyrics weren't anything special. I just have one note, vapid. And the vibe was definitely hype. Juan, you mentioned it was a drill song?
Yeah. And it sounds, from what I read online, that was what he originally started making up until he found success.
So I'm very curious to hear that now.
I mean, this is a good demonstration of it. I think he has a good voice and good flow for it.
Yeah, I'm disappointed you guys aren't like more hyped on this song because with the criticism of a lot of the production sounding really similar, this song is by far the most unique song on the album. It stands out by a lot to me.
I like it.
Yeah.
But I also like the production overall, so.
Right. I don't know. I feel like part of the structure that I really did like about this album is it does a lot of flipping between like hype song and kind of like sad, moody trap song, right? So that's what I like about Martin and Gina. And then we have flex in between this and between Martin and Gina and Go Stupid. And then like Chinatown and a couple songs too that sound really different really help to break up the album in my mind. And Go Stupid is one that if I was ever going to slip into the feeling of like how I felt listening to that whole Drake project of just apathetically passive listening, Go Stupid immediately drew me back in super well. Also, two basketball references in this song that I like. Very beginning, we got a Peja Stojakovic shout out right at the start of the first verse. Shout out to the Sacramento Kings.
Hey.
Sadly, they couldn't beat Kobe in that Western Conference.
Yo, screw that. Kobe fouled, but whatever. I ain't gonna let that go.
Anyway, and then we also got Will Like Harden with the Rockets. We blast off. So getting two shout outs I really liked. I like Peja a lot more than James Harden, but there's not too much for me to say lyrically about this song other than that.
Yeah. Like lyrically, this song, there's nothing special.
Okay, about the production sounding the same, dude, you can't throw a party and say, oh, I've got plenty of soda and it's all Coke. And then I get one can that's vanilla Coke. And I'm like, dude, all the soda's like the same. Like, no, this is vanilla Coke. It's different. It's like, it's still Coke.
I feel like
We did also acknowledge Martin and Gina, though.
well, I feel like that's
cherry Coke.
So there's two vanilla Cokes.
I feel like this song, I don't think that's a fair thing to levy against this song. Maybe more against Martin and Gina. I could see it. This song is like a completely different style than me. If the rest of the album is Coke, this is Jamba Juice.
No.
You know what? No, I agree with Alan. I agree with Alan. I think that Martin and Gina could be vanilla Coke, but I agree with Alan that this is very different from the rest of the album. I can see this as oh, we got a nice little juice bar, here, get some fruit.
Should we move on to another song?
Yeah. I think so the next one we mentioned was 21. Well, 3 in a row, or 4 in a row.
Yeah, have we skipped anything yet?
No, ever since Martin and Gina, we've been going straight. The one we skipped was Heartless. Heartless.
Okay. Oh, Heartless is great. Yeah. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Now we can move on to whatever we're doing.
Okay, did you want to talk about I Know? Because I know you wanted to talk, you mentioned earlier you wanted to talk about it, and it is my favorite song on the album, actually.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that song because of the lyricism of it. Mm-hmm. It talks a lot about trauma, which I don't hear often in hip hop. In particular, I want to bring up basically half of the second verse. Yeah. By his auntie, he was molested as a baby boy, messed up his head. It even changed the way he played with toys. So I don't hear talk about molestation often, especially not about men in hip hop. I appreciated that he was open enough to cover that. I wasn't sure if he was talking about a friend or himself. The openness and the awareness he has to talk about the way it affects the way children play with toys. It seemed like he understood the damage that trauma can do to people.
Right. And actually, as a quick aside, you mentioned how vulnerable he was in Don't Believe the Hype. To me, this is a song that illustrates I'm going to talk about vulnerability and something really dark about a friend who has actually passed. So big respect on my end, too, being willing to bring up topics like that.
Yeah.
And he has one line on this song where he says, why can't I just pull up to your, or why can't I just pull up to your crib and see you right there? To me, that, very much just kind of identifies the amount of just loss he kind of keeps talking about of I used to see you every day or whatever, why can't I just pull up to your house again and you knock on your door and see you, why are you gone, and he also says bonding over drugs and pain's dirty Sprite, it's just, there's so much pain that you feel on this album, it's still, if I had to just pick one word for the overall theme, it would be pain.
Yeah. I just wanted to quickly pose a question. Do you guys think the song is about Juice WRLD? Yeah. Well, I asked that because he mentioned that hate the criticism, he uses music to block it out right before he talks about being molested. Mm-hmm. So hate the criticism, using music to block it out made me think this is someone who was at least popular enough to be criticized. But that's not necessarily enough for me to say this is a song about Juice WRLD. So curious to hear what you guys thought about that.
I thought it might have been about him because he also makes music. So I wasn't sure if that's what he was kind of referencing. And it wasn't on this song, but there are other songs where he will name people who he's lost. Yeah. He also mentions in 21, he mentions Juice WRLD's passing and the effect that had on him.
I didn't really write anything down for 21 except for that line. Can't relapse off these drugs. RIP to Juice. We was streaking off them perks. Pop my last one with you. For those who don't know, Juice WRLD died of a drug overdose, specifically by popping Percocets.
He died at 21, right?
Yeah. He had just turned 21. It was like the day after his birthday or something like that.
And the song's called 21.
Yeah.
I didn't make that connection.
Yeah. To me, that was really strong. You know, we was tweaking off the perks. I popped my last one with you. You know, like after he saw that, he stopped popping perks. But to your point, Alan, I know, like for me, the hate the criticism using music just to block it out. I noted that line too. I don't see that as like a reference to Juice by any means, but I actually kind of took it as like a whole kind of how like listening to music to block it out. I might be the one completely wrong here, but like for me, I know
agree.
when I'm dealing with stuff or whatever, like I don't listen to anything else but the music that makes me feel better. You know, that's kind of all that stays. But it could also be very much the whole I'm using music to I'm making music to kind of block out the hate too. So it could be either though.
Milo, did you have any thoughts on that song?
So the part of the song that resonated with me was just the mention of mental health. Nobody loves you till you're dead. That's when they might care. And that line resonated with me a lot. Don't read into that, but I just thought it was a very good snapshot of the apathy that a lot of people had toward people who are going through issues, and they kind of write them off. I don't know if anyone else has seen the movie Midsommar, but the scene of the boyfriend talking to the girl about her bipolar sister, saying, "Oh, she's just going to go into crisis mode. This is what she always does. She comes running to you, blah, blah, blah. Don't validate it." And then somebody ends up dead. And now everybody wants to get together and talk about, well, where did we go wrong? So that was about all that really stood out to me. I definitely didn't think this song was about Juice WRLD. And I don't know if I could measure that objectively now that like Alan has suggested it. So I'm going to go back into it with that lens.
And I think that was a very valid question too. I mean, obviously considering that there's a song that's, you know, damn near attributed to Juice WRLD. He's on another song. Like it's, you know, Juice WRLD is a part of this album very much so. So
yeah,
just valid. I don't know if anyone has any more thoughts on that song, but the one that I mentioned that I wanted to talk about was No Matter What. Specifically only like the lyrics is what I really took away from this. There's two lyrics that I really loved where he says, pray to the Lord for better days, feel like he's skipping us. For me, that was, I really love that. The whole pray to God, you know, it's going to make life better. And he's like, we pray to God all the time, and my friends still keep dying. You know, like God don't listen to me. God don't listen to us. He don't care about us. Not here in Chicago, because we're dying bullets left and right. You know, so I thought that was really nice. And then he says, that public defender tried to offer me probation. Now I'm on stage standing in front of thousands of faces. That's like, gosh, dude. You hear so much about these young kids just getting a public defender that's gonna try to teach them deal with all this other like bullshit attached to it. And he was just like screw all that, you know. And now he's out here, you know, with a huge career and whatnot.
Did you like the "When You Fight for Your Life Ain't No Round Two"? I was like, yo. Dude, that's the thing. This guy has solid content, but God.
Yeah, this song for me, I thought the lyrics were strong point, but I wasn't into the music, the flow, or the hook. That makes it hard for me to ever come back to it. It was well written and it was a good experience one time, but this was a song that, especially nearing the end of the album, felt too repetitive. And that's the tricky thing with long albums generally, is it's hard for the last songs to feel as powerful when you've already heard so much of the album. So if this song was earlier, it might have been a better experience. Or if it was just on a shorter album.
Right. I definitely kind of agree with you, Juan, that now that I'm like looking at a list of the lyrics, I feel like, wow, I didn't pay enough attention to this song as I should have, because those bars that you guys brought up earlier are incredible lines. But where I was talking about Taj Money bringing the different production that draws my attention back in, for me, it's kind of similar where something's so late in the album, I'm going to have a little harder of a time absorbing like bars in the same way, because I'm looking at it now and I'm seeing lines that are like, felt like I was behind, so I got tired of being patient. If you got your mind stuck on finer things, then you got to chase it. Like, I think that's fantastic, but it's just not on my listens. By the time we get to this point in the album, I really would have appreciated bringing in Taj Money or going a different direction with this kind of production, to be honest. So not my favorite, but definitely one that I'm going to have to sit down and listen to a little more closely, knowing that this is one of the best written songs on the album.
Yeah, lyrically, this is definitely top tier for the album, in my opinion. I noted the next track, or Be Something. For me, this was the catchiest hook on the album. I just want to be so. Like, I really like this track. Dysfunctional, can't show affection, might bug off for no reason. For whatever reason, like, you just like don't fit in or don't work well or whatever. And so you just kind of like become a recluse, just to kind of like move on, move away or whatever, you just kind of got to get away from the people around you. I didn't like Lil Baby on this track. So, I mean, I don't normally like Lil Baby, so it's not much, but like it was weird to me. It sounded like his vocals were like off. Like the mix was super low compared to Polo G's verse. So I was like, did he just like send this after the track was mixed and whatnot? Like it just like I need to talk to the engineer because I was just confused. I was like, his vocals just did not sound mixed well compared to Polo G's. And then his like the volume was too low compared to his. I don't know, it was weird. But also like his flow, like how Polo G is much softer and then Lil Baby comes like super hard, rapping fast. And it just, I mean, I like contrasting flows, but to me, it just did not contrast well.
There has never been a time that I was like, damn, Polo G is such a freaking great rapper as when Lil Baby is rapping. And like, I know, I'm making no secret I'm not like the hugest fan of his, but I really feel like this song kind of for me got ruined by Lil Baby's verse. Just maybe if it had ended, like put Lil Baby first instead of Polo G, and then you can finish strong. Start out with the chorus with Polo G, then go Lil Baby, then end with Polo G again. Then maybe I would like remember it a little more fondly because it's trapped in that middle section. But ending on Lil Baby for me was just, I don't know, why couldn't we get that same Young Thug feature that we've heard on every single podcast multiple times that we've done so far? Low rent Young Thug, Lil Baby.
I think this is one of the songs where he switches up his delivery a bit, and it feels really refreshing. I also like the line, that broke shit made me sick, big appetite with a weak stomach.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice line too.
That was a good line.
Yeah. I know the next track that we all kind of noted was the last track, Waiting for a Hero, but super quick, just in between those were two tracks where I just like a one line from each of them. He says on D&D, I love the vibe of the song, nice beat, hugs, but he has this, to me, one of the dopest lyrics he actually had on the whole album. Like, Taco Night, we leave those shells inside your stomach. Oh, yes. That was such a, I was like, bro, I never would have even thought of a bar like that. Like, that's crazy.
That was really good.
That was a dope ass bar. And then on Trials and Tribulations, where he says no point in church because the preacher can't keep them poles from clapping. Once again, the same thing he said earlier, kind of how the whole God skipping us,
Before we go for Wishing for a Hero, I do want to talk about Chinatown.
Okay.
Really quick. The beat is really gimmicky to me. It uses like a kind of an Asian sample and calls itself Chinatown, but there's nothing else about it that talks about Chinatown. And it like all the other beats felt very intentional, and this one felt like a gimmick. And it should not.
I at least thought he was going to reference the movie with Jack Nicholson, but
well, as the one Asian on this podcast, I'll address the big yellow elephant in the room that I agree. It was it did feel pretty gimmicky to have that Chinese stringed instrument. I don't know the name of it, but to do a sample off that, like there was that track on the Jack Boys album that had it with Young Thug. So it's not a very memorable track for me, other than the line "Big 30 like I'm playing with clay." Shout out to the 2000 State Warriors. Yeah, the track wasn't that great, but when I can get a Splash Brothers reference.
Yeah, I literally, I just put okay. Like for that was the only note I put on that track. Like there was it was okay to me. There was nothing to me other that like really made it stand out. Yeah. So Waiting for a Hero.
Yeah, somebody learned how to sample. Yay! You're getting it.
Yeah, actually, Milo, I'm most curious because I know. So for Milo did like a few Tupac reviews for me, maybe a month or two ago. So I'm actually very curious what you think of this track and compare it to Tupac's version of it.
That's a huge comparing to Tupac's pretty rough. But sorry, I interrupted.
I mean, it's just kind of like, did you like it more, like it less? Like, yeah, I mean, you can't rap over the exact same beat and then not think of a comparison. So,
For a second, I thought he had taken the beat and added a few accents to it that were his own. But then I listened to changes the next day.
No, yeah.
And I was like, no.
He might have sped it up a bit or something.
Yeah, he did speed it up a bit.
Yeah.
And it did sound fast. And to be honest, the technique, the rhyming on this one was a little bit different. There was something different about his rhyming style that I picked up on. And I was thinking, like, why couldn't the rest of the album be like this?
Mm-hmm. I was wondering if this was like kind of what he sounded before, because for me, this wasn't. There was no singing. He was just rapping straight up.
Yeah. He was just rapping.
Yeah.
But as far as comparing it to like Tupac's original changes, like, no, it's pales in comparison.
I thought this was dope as hell as an outro, because once again, it's just super different from the rest of the tracks. Like, I always love when the outro track kind of caps off, like to me, the second track to the outro track kind of concludes the vibe, and then the actual outro track like almost has like a shining, looking towards the future feeling, and that's what this track had for me. It was a very different vibe from the rest of the tracks, and then I like the lyrics a lot. Like the police shoot out one of my brothers, I'm blicking back. It's such a setup. No wonder they called this shit a trap. They killed Martin for dreaming, and now I can't sleep. Like, I don't know. I really, it was a good conclusion in my opinion. I really liked it as a conclusion.
Yeah, I had mentioned earlier that I felt like he earned the ability to use this song by sticking with the piano so consistently and sticking with the kind of gang violence related themes so consistently. My favorite, actually, I love the way that he tributed in the last line of his final verse on the album. We wish we could go back to them days when we just played as kids. A lot of shit has changed, but hey, that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. Yeah. That's
Great
what
word.
we call in the biz. Callback.
So good. Tributed the original, and by original I mean
An
not
homage.
the Bruce song we discussed, but the Tupac song.
I was sad about the song. I didn't like it.
Really?
So, and his rapping was great. I thought he flowed well. I thought all the lyrics you brought up I thought were great, but the verse goes on for the entirety of the first part of the song, and then BG the Chicago Kid, who's an amazing singer.
Studio with Schoolboy Q is my favorite thing he's on.
Yeah, like he just kills everything, and it sounded like it was supposed to be a longer song. And then that ending would have been great for that. I guess I just wanted a hook. I wanted a more condensed hook version of that earlier on, to make the payoff of the way he's like playing with the notes and that the choir comes in feel more powerful. And since it just came in at the end of the verse and that's the end of the song, it didn't really feel deserved. So the issue is with song structure.
That's fair.
I can actually empathize with that a lot. To me, I have a little bit more of a generous reading of that he kind of wanted to end it almost abruptly on purpose. Because that's what his experience has been with life, like losing friends, kind of garnering fame really fast, that you don't really, everything doesn't follow the timeline that you're used to. So for me, ending his verse on "That's the way it is," I feel like that speaks to kind of the craziness that life has that you just kind of have to accept. But that's a really generous reading on my part that I have to.
No, I actually really like your reading. The song left me really unsettled. Like I didn't feel like it was finished. And I think that sometimes the greatness of art is that it can create an emotional reaction like that. Like I feel like there's still something that needs to be done, and that makes me dislike the song, but it also is a really great kind of move to make on the song.
Those are the best kind of songs, Juan. It's like a tease. It's like when you get a snap and it's just the eyes, like under the covers.
Oh, dude.
You want more, but we see
Alan?
no changes. That's like,
Ooh,
that's the point of life in the song today.
The lyrics are changed from the Tupac version back to the old people version that some things will never change, which is like less hopeful than Tupac's and adds to the confusion.
That's fair.
I
see
feel.
that.
All right, so let's wrap this up. So a couple things. So our spicy meter. So no spice, some spice, very spicy, or spicy.
Not in that order.
Yeah, not in that order. I realized I skipped one. I'm putting for this. For me, this is spicy.
So I'm also spicy on this one. I think there's a few tracks I'm going to come back to. I'm really for Polo G to really become the GOAT. I'm going to want to hear him kind of expand a little beyond the trap kind of Juice WRLD inspired stuff, the way that I felt like he did when he was working with Taj Money. So I'm excited to hear if they have anything coming in the future, especially. But great album that I listened to for my first experience with Polo G. Definitely a spicy for me.
My vote is for some spice. To give you some perspective of what I mean by that, Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Yo, actually, that's fair.
So for me, I'm feeling a high spicy to a low very spicy using the Fantano system. I thought it was really good, and it felt like a great introduction to who Polo G is. And I'm very excited to see how he grows and how he develops going forward. I'll definitely be checking the next album.
I don't know if I will, but it's weird. Like this, even though I thought this was a really good album, as I mentioned when I first started, it's not really the type of music I listen to, and so I probably won't come back to any of these tracks, even though a lot of them are actually really good tracks. And we never actually talked about this. I don't think the GOAT was a good title for this album, and it was
no, agreed.
It was not.
This.
Terrible.
Yeah, I was like, for like the GOAT, like GOAT status, where I was like, you can't call yourself the GOAT and make an album that's all the same content and damn near all the same production. Like I'm sorry, like you could have gone with a lot of different other album titles. To me, this just was not a great title for this album by any means.
Like it didn't fit.
Not at all.
Like there's some bragging, but it's not like he's showing us why he's the best. He's showing us why he's got a great story to tell.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not like he's Drake.
That's not the same thing.
Yo, I'm the greatest ever.
Like there's no diverse in skill sets or anything like to me to show like a GOAT thing. So, but yeah. Anyway, sorry, I just needed to bring that up. I thought that was not a great title for this album. 2 tracks that I would like on the playlist would probably be. Damn, this is actually a hard one for me. I probably will pick Be Something. I thought, like I said, Lil Baby was horrible, but for me, I really love the hook. I thought the hook was catchy as hell. And then after that, it would be I Know.
Wishing for a Hero. And I Know.
For me, it's going to be Martin and Gina and I Know.
Mine is going to be Don't Believe the Hype and I Know.
Okay, so we all picked I Know and one other song. So we can put I Know for sure. Mark, why don't you tell them which song did you pick, Mark?
I picked Be Something.
Okay, why did you pick Be Something?
Like the hook, it's just such a. I thought that was just the catchiest hook on the entire album, and so for me, if someone's going to drive me back to want to listen to a song again, it's typically going to be the hook, and so.
Okay, Juan, which other song did you pick?
I picked Don't Believe the Hype because if we're going to include it on a playlist, then it's a great song that really captures who Polo G is.
That's fair. Mm-hmm. Which one did you pick, Ellen?
Oh, me? Yeah, I picked Martin and Gina just because it was I think we all felt that the instrumental was a nice little switch up compared to the typical kind of trap stuff that we hear on the rest of the record. It's personally probably my favorite strict instrumental. And I felt like for a sample, it would be a good intro because it's a little lighter than the heaviest songs like I Know would be on the album. So for me, just the ease of getting into it. And also because I am looking for more Taj Money, Polo G in the future, I would like to shout that one out.
I'm willing to switch my second vote to Don't Believe the Hype because I agree with Juan that is I think that's a solid introduction or a little sampler for Polo G. So to give that 2 votes, I'm willing to switch to Don't Believe the Hype.
So nobody. Okay.
I think Waiting for a Hero is a great track, but to me, it's like that doesn't show Polo G though. Like if you're gonna listen to that track, then listen to this album, you'd be like, what? Like they're not the same. So I don't think it's a good sample of the album.
Okay, well, if we want to choose a good sample of the album, then yes. Don't believe the hype then, or don't believe the hype is better than Martin and Gina, because it's like Juan said, it's a thesis statement.
Can we also add Martin and Gina?
Well, no, I think we got to go with 2.
Yeah, we got to go
Don't
with
believe
2.
the hype is. That's fine. That's fine.
If an album we've reviewed deserves 3 spots,
No,
it's this one.
No, this is not going to be the album we make that exception for. I'm sorry.
I agree with Milo.
All right.
I agree with Milo. This is not the album we're going to make that exception for.
And I feel like part of the fun is that we kind of have to defend our picks. So, Juan, you wanted to pick.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as a quick aside from next week, we are going to be looking at the new album from Coda the Friend called Everything. Before we actually recorded the first episode of the podcast, we were thinking of doing his first 2019 album called Photo, but we switched it up to Stupid Drake. And Photo I actually liked a lot. So I haven't listened to everything yet, but check it out. Everything, Coda the Friend. It dropped last week, and I've been hearing awesome things. So
I've never even heard of him.
yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. We went a little long today. We'll be back next week with that Coda the Friend. Later.
All right, have a good one, y'all.
Bye.
Oh.
Stay in this time, Helen.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop recording now.
Yeah, I stopped.